Howdy, guys, and welcome to season 3 of Celebrity Big Brother. Welcome to night 22 of the Overnight Feeds recaps, and welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. Man, night 22. That means we only have 7 nights left. Such a quick season. I know I say that every recap, but that's such a quick season. So let's talk a little bit about the TV episode first that we saw last night, and then let's talk about what happened in the Overnight Feeds. There were a few conversations worth talking about. So we'll cover it all in the next 15 minutes or so. First of all, the episode recap. Now, remember, the last episode more or less left off with Shanna getting voted out of the house. Most funny part of that entire vote was Lamar sitting in a diary room chewing his fingernails and really seeming uncertain about which way he wanted to vote. Well, we got a little bit more of a recap on that. This episode starts off with the aftermath of that vote. And if I recall, Todd is saying, man, you were in there a long time. Well, what's going on, Lamar? Lamar turns around and in front of everyone, including Misha, says, yeah, I didn't really have a beef with Shanna. And hey, Todd, I was trying to get your attention ahead of time about maybe voting out Misha instead, but I couldn't get your attention. And so eventually I voted for Shanna, but I just didn't have a beef with her. I understand Lamar may not have the most firm grasp of all the rules of this game, but just basic strategy. Don't talk about the fact that you really wanted to target someone else that's still in the house. But he does it. We get a diary room session. Todd's pretty incredulous, saying, why in the world would you say that, Lamar? And I'm kind of thinking the same thing. Guess who Misha's putting up next if she gets a chance, Lamar, now that she knows where you're at. So, yeah, that was a little bit rough. But here, on the other hand, here's this. Lamar's kind of thrown the gauntlet down, right? He's pretty much let it be known that he doesn't have any problem sending Misha out the door. Maybe that's the impetus that's needed to get Cynthia and Lamar and Todd to work against Todrick and Misha. It may be too late at this point in time, but the three of them teaming up against those two powers of Todrick and Misha, it's the only way that anyone other than those two are going to win this season of Big Brother. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I wouldn't have said it at the first of the season, but I'm kind of jumping on board Team Todd and Team Lamar to take this thing home. Not sure it's going to happen. Realistically, this guy right here may be my pick that I'm kind of cheering for to finish this thing up. Doesn't mean that I don't respect the gameplay of other people in the house. And if they win, they deserve it. But just in terms of in here and who I kind of am cheering for, it may be Mr. Old Todd Bridges. So yeah, Lamar, you throw down the gauntlet, and I hope the others picked up on it. And let's see what happens with this next HOH. But yeah, I think everyone's shocked when Lamar said that. We do get to see the HOH competition, and we knew from the overnight feeds that Todd had won. It involved something about drinks and taste and stuff. This is a tough competition. They get brought out these drinks named after each of them with all kinds of weird ingredients and nasty ingredients, and they have to taste it and figure out what's in each one, the one missing ingredient in each one. And Todd, we knew he won HOH, but and I knew he'd won with a perfect score, but watching me actually do it, I'm impressed. Old Boss Hogg wouldn't have gotten all of those right. But Todd gets every single one of them right. He wins HOH. He deserves it. Now, I was a little disappointed that the very last round, Todrick wouldn't even taste the drink. I just said, yeah, I'm not going to win anyway, so why bother? You always bother. When else are you going to get to play Big Brother in one of these challenges, one of these competitions? You fight to the very end. You bother. You go ahead and play that last round, even though you're not going to win, just because you have the opportunity to do it. That's the spirit that you got to take into this house, Todrick. And I was disappointed to see him just throw his hands up and not even try in the last round. You never do that. You fight to the very end, but whatever. He didn't win. Todd won. And as a result, we saw a nomination of not Cynthia and Carson as expected, but actually Carson and Lamar. A little bit of a surprise there. It was interesting. We also, we'll talk about that in a second, but we also did get to see the room reveal, the HOH room for Todd. I'm glad to see that. Thank you, CBS. I wish we got more of those. So we get to see his room reveal. And Misha decided to attend this time. Last time she wouldn't attend with Carson, which I thought was being a little bit of a poor sport, but she attended this time, so everyone gets to see Todd's HOH room and see his son and his daughter, and all. That's cool. I always like to see that. All right, so some discussion. We hear Todd talking now about why he put up Lamar next to Carson instead of Cynthia. And here's the thinking. It's interesting. He thought that if Carson won veto, he'd be much less likely to pull himself down, knowing that if he did so, Cynthia would be going up in his place. We heard Carson talk before saying, yeah, I'll sacrifice myself, Cynthia. I think you need to stay in the house. You've got a better chance than I do. So maybe Todd's right. Maybe Todd's read the room a little bit, read Carson a little bit, and realizes that by not putting Cynthia up, he then has the ability to make sure that Carson stays on the block, even if Carson wins the veto. It's interesting thinking. Todd, all right, I can't argue with that argument. The danger remains, however, if you're on the other side, that by not putting both of them up, if Cynthia was to win that veto, she could pull Carson down, and then Todd doesn't have the ability to put either of them up. So he would have to put up either Todderick or Misha up against Lamar. And at that point, Carson and Cynthia surely would vote either Todderick or Misha out the door over Lamar, right? I think so. That's the danger of Todd's approach. But at least he's thought this thing through a little bit, and I get his argument. I just think it's a little dangerous, the possible scenarios with it. But at least we understand what his thinking is at this point. So with that being said, let's talk about the overnight feeds real quick. Well, talked about the possibility of Cynthia winning that veto and kind of gumming up the whole process. It would have meant Todderick or Misha on the block, which I'm all in for. I would have loved to see the drama and chaos that would have caused. But it doesn't matter because that's not what happened. We had the veto competition yesterday. Cynthia, surprise, surprise, did not win veto. No, instead, the winner of the veto is Misha. Misha's just a comp beast. They may have missed their opportunity to get her out the door because she's going to keep on winning rounds and competition. She's going to be tough to get out the door. But Misha's won the veto. And as a result, I really don't think she's going to change. There's no way she's going to pull either one of them off the block, because if she does, then Todderick goes up. And yeah, I think the noms stay exactly the same now that Misha has won the veto competition. We've got Todd. We don't even know what the competition was. I was going to mention that for that, but she won't change noms. Don't know what the comp was. I didn't even hear him really talking about last night. Maybe I just was listening in on the wrong rooms, but we'll find out more over the next day or two, next episode, etc. So conversations kind of in the aftermath of that. Todd's talking Lamar and Cynthia. Carson comes in just a little bit later, but he's talking to them and saying, look, one of y'all one of you has to win the next HOH so we can put Todderick and Misha on the block. So which side is Todd with? I mean, Todd's kind of has a little bit of a connection with Misha. I mean, I'm not going to call it a final two, but it seems like he was working with them a little bit. Now he's with the other side and saying, look, y'all got to win so we can get out Todderick and Misha. I'm glad to hear it. I think that really is Todd's only avenue to victory, is to get those two powers out from the other side. He can't compete in the next HOH, so he's depending upon Cynthia and Lamar to win this thing. That's a tough depend, right? He says, well, has to win. Lamar immediately says, that ain't going to happen. Todd says, what do you mean it's not going to happen? You don't even know what the competition is going to be. And Lamar says, I know my head. I'm not there. I'm not going to win this next HOH. You can't go into a competition with a defeatist attitude, or you probably won't win. So Todd's a little perturbed at that. He said, no, look, you have to win. You can't be talking about that, Lamar. Yeah, you got to win this thing, or else we're all in trouble. So he's trying to get Lamar in the right frame of mind at that point. Todd later tells him, says, look, I can't go against my word now, but at Final Four I can, according to the rules. I'm not sure exactly what he meant. I actually watched a repeat of that a couple of times trying to figure it out, and I still don't know. I think he's meaning that he didn't want to put one of them up this week, but he wants to go against them next week. And I'm not sure what rule says you can't turn on someone Final Five versus Final Three. And Lamar's actually perturbed at this a little bit, basically saying, yeah, if you're turning around and talking about flipping on them at Final Three versus now, what's it matter, Todd? But Todd says he's already given his word, so he can't do anything right now. And here's the real thing. The real fear from Todd, I think, is that he knows he's HOH. If he goes after Carson, gets Carson out the door, Cynthia is not a huge comp threat. So Todd's probably fairly safe. But if he had put up Todrick and Miesha on the block after kind of saying he wouldn't do so, if he put them up on the block, one of them would go home, but the other one would be gunning for Todd at that point in time. And as Todd says later, that, look, if we don't win HOH, they're going after me. They're sending me out the door. And that's probably right. I certainly think Miesha has some reasons to maybe go after Lamar, given that he said he'd be happy to send her out the door. But Todd is proving himself to be a little bit more of a competition threat, a little more of a strategist. If I'm Todrick and Miesha, yeah, Todd's probably who I'm booting out the door next if I get the chance. So Todd didn't want to pull the trigger, get that side mad at him, but he's happy to let someone else win HOH and let someone else get the blood on their hands, so to speak. So Todd's continuing conversation. Look, the only way to get them out is if you, Lamar, or you, Cynthia, win this HOH. And he's not completely right. Consider this alternative scenario. Miesha wins HOH. Todd and Lamar and Cynthia, as we would predict, do not win HOH. Instead, Miesha wins HOH. She puts up Cynthia and Lamar, or she puts up Cynthia and Todd. Let's just call it Cynthia and Lamar for point of argument. And then Todd wins a veto. He pulls Lamar down. So Cynthia's still on the block. Miesha has no choice except to put Todrick on the block next to Cynthia, at which point Todd and Lamar vote Todrick out the door on Miesha's HOH. How glorious would that be? And it could go the opposite. Todrick wins HOH, and Miesha goes out the door if the right person wins veto amongst the other three. So there's ways that Todrick or Miesha could head out the door, even if one of them wins HOH. So it's not all hope is lost yet. Not all depends on Lamar or Cynthia winning HOH, but that certainly is the most clear path to getting that power duo, one of them out the door. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun couple of days. We've got some other conversations. Lamar, Carson, Cynthia talking. Carson realizes he's gone. I just don't see any path where he doesn't go home this week. He's resigned to his fate, and he's okay with that. But Lamar, Carson, and Cynthia are talking, and she's excuse me, it's not live YouTube, but whatever. Lamar's Carson, Cynthia talking. She's saying, look, once Carson, as she's talking to Lamar, she's saying, once Carson is gone, I'm going to be all alone in this house. Lamar, you've been a free agent this entire season. You've made it clear you're not really, attached to anyone. I'd love to, we're both going to be kind of alone in the house to some degree. And, hint. Well, Todrick, Lamar, I don't know if he doesn't. Lamar just is thinking on his own and says, look, I never told Todd that I was down with you. That it's just Todd and I together. I never say anything about being down with you, Cynthia. And she said, well, fine. I guess you're safe then. But Lamar just is a different kind of big brother player. So yeah, Cynthia's trying to reach out and make some connections with them, and Lamar's just having none of it. Lamar throughout this whole season has been pretty clear saying, it's all about me. I'm not playing the team game. I'm not doing any of that. It's all about me. I'll vote out whoever I think is the strongest and let the cards fall where they may. Speaking of, how many decks of cards do they have in this house? It seems like everyone's playing cards. They're playing spades. They're playing solitaire in different rooms. We were lucky to get one deck of cards the last week we were in the house. Last 2 weeks we were in the house. They got decks of cards going everywhere. I guess they will figure if they gave them enough cards, Lamar couldn't tear them all up. We got Cynthia telling Carson that she's finally figured it out. She says, I've realized if you're not good at anything, then it kind of helps you stick around as long as you can inside the Big Brother house. It's actually a good thing if you're not good at anything. Cynthia, Derek Frazier says hello. Yeah, sometimes really being bad at competitions makes you less of a threat and you stick around to the very end. The problem is your chances of winning the whole thing are nil to none. But yeah, you can stick around for a while if you're really bad at the competitions. Hey, Lamar and Cynthia are both here, so case in point, right? Uh, Carson says, "Yeah, I think the game strategy may be just to stay under the radar until the very end, then win a lot of comps, and you win the whole thing." Yeah, a lot of people have done it that way, Carson. You're absolutely right. They've got a bit of a plan that they're going to try to put into play to save Carson. They're going to talk to Misha and Todrick and ask them to vote Lamar out. And then later they say, well, maybe we'll wait till Friday right before the eviction, ask them to do that. As Carson said, he doesn't know a lot about basketball, but that's a complete Hail Mary. I like some of Carson's statements. Yeah, they're going to ask him to do that, but I don't see any world where Misha and Todrick choose to keep Carson in house and send Lamar out the door. I don't see it happening, but hey, yeah, make the ask, and the worst that happens is they say no. I guess the worst that's happened is they laugh at you as they say no, but that's the only plan they got in play right now. Carson's going home. There's no good way to explain why that shouldn't be the case. So meanwhile, Lamar, as I mentioned before, he's really gotten in his head a little bit and just seems depressed about the whole situation. Maybe he's seen some writing on the wall and realizing that he doesn't see a clear path of victory, but he's just been down all day long. Cynthia and Carson are trying to cheer him up and doing everything they can to get his spirits up a little bit. Todd's a little upset because I think he knows he's dependent upon Lamar to some extent for his survival, and Lamar hasn't given up. Lamar says, hey, I'm still here, but beyond that, it seems like Lamar's just not really into the game right now. So Todd's a little upset about that. But later, I think Lamar realizes that everyone is feeling kind of depressed because Lamar is not fighting. It doesn't seem like he wants to fight anymore. Lamar gets a little more spirit about him. He approaches Todd, says, look, I'm going to fight. I'm going to give it all. I'm going to do everything I can to win HOH. You don't have to worry about me. I'm not quitting on this thing. And that gets Todd a little more inspired a little bit. They end up saying, we good? Yeah, we're good. And everything seems to be better at the end of the night. I guess so, because they end up in the HOH bed sleeping next to each other. So the two buddies are still hanging out. I can't believe I'm cheered for Todd Bridges to win this season of Big Brother, and I'm kind of cheering for Lamar to be right there next to him, and probably Shayna to win America's Favorite Player. That's kind of where I'm leaning, guys. Maybe a few of y'all are feeling something similar as well. But there you go. So everyone's in bed by 2:00 or so in the morning. Again, the big news from last night, I suppose, is that Misha's won veto, so we aren't going to see any change in nominations. Carson should be going home this week, and there's at least Cynthia and Lamar and Todd all recognizing the danger of Todrick and Misha. So it's 3 versus 2. Unfortunately, those two are probably the two strongest comp players in the house, and so we'll find out. This next AHOH is going to determine whether that power hold is broken. If Misha or Todrick wins this next HOH, they send Lamar or Todd out the door. At that point, I think you've got to give the Big Brother Season 3, Celebrity Season 3 title to either Todrick or Misha. I think they'll take it to the end. So we'll find out. I'll have more information tomorrow morning, Friday. I don't know. I think we'll have had the nomination or the veto ceremony. And again, I don't expect anything to happen. So we'll see if we have some conversations happen overnight. But I'll be back tomorrow morning to talk about what all is said, the tone, who's depressed, who's excited, everything else. Until then, guys, y'all have a great Thursday. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends.